I was born chill. When my younger siblings fought over milk, I sat calmly on the side. Live or die, whatever. When we grew up, my sister snatched the better marriage proposal first, leaving me to marry the allegedly bankrupt Air Adrian Sterling. I nodded, okay. Marriage is marriage. As long as he's human, I'm good. Later, Adrian staged a comeback and became the richest man in the city, the envy of everyone. My sister came to me, hoping to swap husband so she could be Mrs. Sterling. Just as I was about to nod and agree, Adrian stepped forward and covered my mouth. That's not happening.
Me.
It could happen, Adrian. It really, really can't. In the moment, I can remember I never fought for anything when we were kids. If my brother and sister brawled over the last bottle of juice, I just watched. It wasn't that I didn't want it. I just felt that getting it was fine, and not getting it was also fine. It's just juice. Once it's gone, it's gone. Mom always said I had no temper. Dad said my go with the flow attitude was heartbreaking. But they soon realized my personality was actually quite convenient. Since I didn't fight for anything, they could just give the best stuff to my siblings. Gradually, heartbreaking became matter of course. The best room went to my sister Bella, because girls need to be pampered. The expensive private tutors went to my brother, because boys need to succeed. As for me, Jane, I got the smallest north-facing room and went to public school. Jane is the most sensible. She won't mind, Mom said, every time.
I really didn't mind.
I didn't take it to heart at all. At 23, I graduated and got a clerical job at a standard company, with an average salary. My life was ripple-free. Bella, 2 years younger, had just returned from studying abroad, and was waiting to be married off. That night, our parents called us to the living room. 2 portfolios lay on the coffee table. Dad cleared his throat. You're both at the age to marry. These 2 young men are suitable candidates. I picked up one. Adrian Sterling, 28, heir to Sterling Group. The man in the photo had sharp eyebrows and bright eyes, and outstanding aura. The file noted, Sterling Group has recently suffered from mismanagement, and has filed for bankruptcy restructuring. The other was Liam Cole, the only son of the wealthy Cole family. Solid foundation, assets in the billions. Bella picks first, Mom said, looking at my sister as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Bella didn't even glance at Adrian's file. She grabbed Liam's immediately.
I want the Cole family.
She turned to me, eyes gleamed with triumph and entitlement. Jane, you marry Adrian. You're not picky. Anyway, I looked at Adrian's photo and nodded, okay. Mom let out a sigh of relief. Jane is so sensible. Although Adrian is down on his luck, he's still a Sterling. He's more than good enough for you. Dad nodded, too. It's settled. Then I closed the file, without a word. Marriage is marriage. It's just living life. Besides, truthfully, the man in the photo was quite handsome. From that day on, the house was in wedding mode. Bella's wedding was set for 3 months later. 50 tables at the city's finest 5-star hotel. Mom was busy every day picking dresses, jewelry and decor, spinning like a top. My wedding was set for a week after Bella's. 10 tables at a regular restaurant. Mom said, since the Sterling family doesn't have many people left, let's keep it simple. I nodded, okay. Then came the dowry preparation. Truckloads of goods moved out for Bella. Designer bags, jewelry, antique vases, mahogany furniture sets, the latest appliances, and a check for $500,000 Mom prepared specifically for her. If the dowry is light, the Cole family will look down on us, Mom said while directing the movers. I can't lose face. For me, Mom prepared 2 suitcases, one for clothes, one for daily necessities, and a modest set of silver jewelry. I looked at the 2 thin suitcases and said, nothing. Mom probably felt a twinge of guilt and explained, Jane, you're marrying a bankrupt man. Adrian has nothing now. It's his blessing to marry you at all. He wouldn't dare complain about a small dowry. He should be grateful. Dad added, your sister is different. The Coles are old. Money can't let them underestimate us. You should understand. I know. Growing up, Bella got the best because she had to marry. Well, it didn't matter for me because I didn't care. Caring was useless. This logic had run smoothly in our family for over 20 years, like a precise machine. The night before the wedding, Bella came to my room, leaning against the door frame as I packed. Jane, don't you feel shortchanged? She asked.
Shortchanged.
How I folded clothes without looking up. Marrying a bankrupt guy, she smirked. I couldn't handle it. You don't have to. You're marrying Liam.
True.
She nodded with satisfaction. But don't be too sad. I heard Adrian is a decent guy. At least he won't treat you badly. Besides, with your personality, it doesn't matter who you marry. I looked up at her. You're right. She paused, probably surprised by my calmness. Found it boring, shrugged and left. Continued packing, thinking I'm getting married tomorrow. Marrying a man I've never met. Starting a completely strange life. Sounds kind of interesting. It drizzled on my wedding day. Ella's wedding a week ago was star-studded and lively. I went to help watching her in a six-figure gown, wearing the family jade heirloom, holding Liam's arm, face full of happiness. For my wedding, hardly anyone came. Only a few distant relatives from the Sterling side showed up. My side of the family said they weren't feeling well and didn't come. Only a few colleagues I got along with came to support me. I wore the dress Mom prepared. A simple white dress, no veil. The makeup artist was recommended by the restaurant owner. Average skills gave me a light look. I looked in the mirror and thought I looked pretty good. The ceremony was simple, no MC. No flower girl, no complex procedures. Adrian and I exchanged rings under the witness of friends and family. Simple silver rings, probably a few $100s. I saw Adrian in person for the first time. He was taller and thinner than in the photo. He wore a suit that had been washed until it was slightly faded, but his tie was meticulous, his hair neat. There was awkwardness in his eyes, but he tried hard to maintain his dignity. His look was complex, apologetic, yet inquiring. "I'm sorry," he whispered, as we exchanged rings, "for making you marry someone like me." I looked at him. This man had beautiful eyes. Even in poverty, his inherent grace couldn't be hidden. "It's okay. I don't care. Anyway," he paused, then chuckled softly, a smile mixed with indescribable bitterness. After the brief ceremony, we cut the cake, toasted, and collected the few red envelopes. Then Adrian said to me, "Let's go home." Home. The word sounded a bit unfamiliar. Our new home was an old apartment on the outskirts of the city. 6th floor, no elevator. Adrian carried my two thin suitcases up. Step by step, I followed, listening to his heavy footsteps. He looked back at me, guilt in his eyes. "Sorry for making you live in a place like this." I looked around. "It's fine. At least it's quiet." He smiled and opened the door. The apartment was small, about 600 square feet. One bedroom. But it was very clean. Simple furniture, clean curtains, freshly washed sheets drying on the balcony. I spent yesterday cleaning," he said shyly. "Hope you can get used to it." I looked at this small space and felt it was cozy. "I will." He put the suitcases in the bedroom, then took a stack of crumpled bills from his pocket and placed them in my hand. "This is everything I have right now. $3,000. I'm starting as a delivery driver tomorrow. I should be able to make some money. I'll support you." I took the bills, still warm, from his hand. They were smoothed out carefully, old but clean. "You keep this money if you give it all to me. What if you need cash while you're out working?" I pushed the money back, my gaze frank without a shred of disdain. "You don't despise me?" he asked, eyes holding a cautious hope. "No, as long as we can survive." A complex emotion flashed in his eyes, turning into a light sigh. You really are." He didn't finish, but I knew what he meant. Probably thought I was too easy to fool. That night, we had a simple dinner. He cooked noodles with 2 eggs. I'm not a good cook. Just make do. It's tasty. I genuinely thought so. The plain noodles tasted like home. After dinner, he volunteered to wash the dishes. I sat on the sofa watching his busy back in the kitchen, and suddenly felt that this life wasn't bad. At bedtime, he gentlemanly offered to sleep on the sofa. "It's okay. The bed is big enough. Let's sleep together." My understanding of sleeping together was literally just closing eyes and sleeping. He hesitated for a long time, but chose the sofa. "Let's wait until you're used to it." Lying in bed, seeing his figure curled up on the sofa through the half-open door, I felt something indescribable. This man seemed better than I imagined. The morning after my wedding, I woke up to the smell of toasted bread. I walked out of the bedroom, rubbing my eyes. The cramped living room was already flooded with early sunlight. Adrian was sitting at the tiny folding table, dressed in a bright yellow delivery uniform. It was slightly oversized, but he wore it with the same upright posture he'd worn his faded wedding suit. "Morning," he said, pushing a plate toward me. 2 slices of toast, perfectly golden, and a glass of warm milk. "I have to start my shift. I figured out the bus route to your office. It's the 42, stops right at the corner. I left a transit card on the counter for you." I sat down, taking a bite of the toast. "Thanks. Be safe on the road." He paused at the door, his helmet tucked under his arm. He looked like he wanted to say something more, a grand promise, perhaps, or another apology, but he just nodded and left. My life resumed its usual rhythm, just in a different zip code. I went to my clerical job, typed up spreadsheets, drank mediocre breakroom coffee, and took the bus back to the 6th floor walk-up. The only difference was that the apartment was never empty. There was always a lingering scent of soap or a pair of large sneakers by the door. Adrian worked relentlessly. He left before I woke up and often returned long after the streetlights flickered on. Whenever he came home, he'd strip off his uniform, wash up thoroughly, and then sit at the folding table with a battered second-hand laptop. He would type late into the night. I never asked what he was doing. It was his business. One rainy Tuesday, about 2 months into our marriage, he came home completely drenched. His uniform clung to his skin, and he was limping. I looked up from the TV. "Did you fall?" "Skidded on some wet leaves," he admitted, looking thoroughly embarrassed. He stood by the door, hesitant to drip water onto the cheap linoleum floor he scrubbed every Sunday. "The bike is fine, but the delivery got ruined. Had to pay for the customer's sushi out of pocket." I walked into the bathroom, grabbed a towel, and tossed it to him. Then I fetched the first aid kit. "Sit," I said, pointing to a plastic stool. He sat. I rolled up his pant leg. His knee was scraped raw, oozing blood and dirt. I cleaned it with antiseptic. He flinched, his jaw tightening, but he didn't make a sound. "You don't have to do this, Jane," he said softly, looking down at the top of my head. "I'm a grown man. I can clean my own scrapes." "I know," I said, taping a large gauze pad over the wound. "But I'm closer to the bandages." He let out a short, breathy laugh. "You're incredible, you know that?" I looked up, genuinely confused. "Because I can apply a bandage?" "Because you don't complain," he said, his eyes darkening with an emotion I couldn't quite read. "Because you're living in a shoebox, married to a guy who just blew today's wages on ruined sushi, and you haven't sighed once." My former friends, the ones from the old circles, they would have thrown a fit. Bella would have screamed.
Bella likes screaming.
"It's good for her lungs," I said dryly, packing the kit away. "I don't. It wastes energy. Besides, you didn't drop the sushi on purpose. Go take a hot shower before you catch a cold." That night, for the first time, he didn't sleep on the sofa. I had thrown his pillow onto my side of the bed. When he came out of the bathroom, he stared at it. "The sofa is bad for your back, especially after a fall," I stated, pulling the covers up. "Sleep here. I don't kick." He slid into the bed cautiously, keeping himself rigidly to the far edge, as if terrified of crossing an invisible line. But in the middle of the night, when the temperature dropped, I felt him subconsciously shift closer, absorbing my warmth. It wasn't unpleasant. It just felt like having a very large, very quiet radiator. A month later, my mother called. It was my father's 55th birthday, and she was hosting a dinner at a high-end seafood restaurant downtown. "Make sure Adrian dresses decently," she warned over the phone. "The Cole family is joining us. Liam's parents are bringing a gift. Don't let your husband embarrass us." "Okay," I said and hung up. When we arrived at the restaurant, the private dining room was already loud with laughter. Bella was the center of attention, draped in a silk dress, a massive diamond catching the chandelier light. Liam Cole sat beside her, swirling a glass of wine with the bored arrogance of a man who had never been told no. When we walked in, the room went quiet. Adrian was wearing his only suit. He had spent an hour ironing it, but you couldn't iron away the cheap fabric or the slightly frayed cuffs. "Jane," Bella beamed, though her eyes were doing a rapid, assessing sweep of my plain clothes. "You made it. We thought Adrian might have a night shift. I hear delivery quotas are brutal." "He took the night off," I said, pulling out a chair. Liam smirked. "Tough break, Sterling. To go from ordering the Wagyu to delivering it. Must be a hell of an adjustment." Adrian's jaw locked, but he smiled politely. "Honest work is never an adjustment, Mr. Cole. It's just a different perspective." My father cleared his throat, clearly displeased by the tension. "Sit down, both of you. Let's just eat." Throughout the dinner, the focus was entirely on Liam. My parents fawned over him, asking about his family's new real estate acquisitions, praising his business acumen. Liam soaked it up, occasionally tossing a patronizing piece of advice toward Adrian. "You know, Sterling, if you need a real job, I could probably find you something in my warehouse. Inventory management. Better than riding a scooter in the rain." Liam chuckled. Adrian didn't look angry. In fact, he looked mildly amused. "I appreciate the offer, Liam, but I've noticed Cole Enterprises recently over-leveraged on the South Bay project. With the upcoming zoning changes, warehouse management might be the least of your concerns soon." Liam's smirk faltered. "What are you talking about?" "South Bay is a gold mine." Adrian took a sip of water. "The city council is voting on an environmental protection bill next month. If it passes, and the polls say it will, commercial construction in South Bay will be halted for 2 years. Your capital will be tied up. I'd liquidate early if I were you." The table went dead silent. Liam turned red. "You're a delivery boy. What do you know about zoning?" "Just what I read on my routes," Adrian said mildly. My mother glared at me, kicking me under the table. I ignored her and reached for a garlic butter prawn. "The prawns are really good, Adrian." You should try one before Bella eats them all.
Bella gasped.
Jane. I put a prawn on Adrian's plate. He looked at me, the tension draining from his shoulders, and smiled. He peeled the prawn and put it back on my plate. You have it. I know you like seafood. We ate our meal in relative peace after that, mostly because Liam was aggressively texting on his phone, looking suddenly sweaty. On the bus ride home, Adrian stared out the window at the passing city lights. Sorry, he said quietly. For what? For talking back. For making things awkward with your family. You didn't make it awkward. Liam did. Besides, you were right, weren't you? He looked at me, his eyes gleaming in the dark bus.
Yes.
Cole Enterprises is going to bleed money by Q3. Good, I said, resting my head against the rattling window. He's annoying. Adrian laughed, a rich, genuine sound that made a few tired passengers look our way. He reached out, hesitantly, and took my hand. His fingers were calloused from the scooter handles, but they were warm. I didn't pull away. A year passed. The seasons changed, and so did the rhythm of our apartment. Adrian stopped delivering food. Instead, he started having hushed, intense phone calls in the kitchen. He brought home stacks of legal documents and whiteboards that he leaned against our faded wallpaper. One evening, I came home to find him pacing the living room, running his hands through his hair. What's wrong? I asked, putting down my grocery bags. He stopped, looking at me with a mix of feverish excitement and dread.
Jane.
I have it. I built an AI-driven logistics and supply chain software. It predicts bottlenecks before they happen. I pitched it to a venture capital firm today. They love it. That's good, isn't it? They want to buy it outright for $3 million. I blinked. $3 million? Yes. He took a deep breath. But if I refuse the buyout, I can retain the IP and start my own firm. They'd come on as investors instead. The ceiling is infinite. It's exactly the kind of tech the old Sterling Group desperately needed and failed to build. I could take my family's legacy back. I could build an empire. So do that. I need seed money for the incorporation, the initial server space, and the legal fees to fight off a patent troll who just caught wind of my code. I need about $50,000. And I need it by Friday. His shoulders slumped. We don't have $50,000. I have to take the buyout. I looked at him. Then I walked to the bedroom, pulled my battered suitcase from under the bed, and unzipped the lining. I pulled out a plain manila envelope and walked back to the living room, handing it to him. What is this? He asked. Bank books, some bonds my grandmother left me, and the cash value of the silver jewelry Mom gave me for the dowry. I said. It's about $52,000. Adrian stared at the envelope as if it were a live grenade.
Jane. No.
This is everything you have. This is your emergency fund. We don't have emergencies, I said reasonably. We have health insurance and we don't own a car to crash. If I fail, this is gone. All of it. We'll be back to zero. I shrugged. Then we're at zero. We'll just eat noodles. You make good noodles. Adrian stepped forward, closing the distance between us. His eyes were suspiciously bright.
He didn't say anything.
He just pulled me into a crushing hug. He buried his face in my neck, his chest heaving slightly. I won't lose it, he whispered fiercely against my skin. I swear to you, Jane. I am going to give you the world. I don't have room for the world in a 600-square-foot apartment, I mumbled against his shoulder. Just give me the money back with interest. He pulled back, cupping my face, a fierce, blazing smile breaking across his features. With interest, I promise. The rise of Adrian Sterling was something out of a financial thriller. He didn't just start a company, he ignited a revolution in logistics tech. Within 6 months, Sterling Logistics acquired 3 major regional carriers. Within a year, he had bought back the original Sterling Group headquarters. Our life changed with dizzying speed. First, it was a tailored suit. Then, a sleek black sedan with a driver. Finally, he came home one afternoon, packed my 2 old suitcases himself, and moved us into a 6,000-square-foot penthouse overlooking the city skyline. I kept my clerical job. Adrian found this hilarious, but he never asked me to quit. Every morning, the billionaire CEO of Sterling Group would have his chauffeur drop his wife off at a mid-level accounting firm in a Honda. He bought a separate, inconspicuous car just so my coworkers wouldn't stare. As Adrian rose, the Cole family plummeted. Just as Adrian had predicted, the South Bay project collapsed under environmental regulations. Liam's father had a heart attack. Liam took over the company and ran it straight into the ground with a series of panicked, high-risk investments. I heard about it mostly through my mother, whose frantic phone calls had become a weekly routine. Jane, you need to ask Adrian to loan Liam a few million. Just to tide them over, she pleaded one Sunday. Adrian's money is tied up in assets. I lied smoothly, watering my new orchids. Jane, Bella is your sister. Liam is selling her designer bags to make payroll. That's illegal, I think. Or just sad. Anyway, my soup is boiling over, Mom. Gotta go. I didn't hate my family, but I felt no obligation to be their lifeboat. For 25 years, I was the afterthought, the girl in the north-facing room. I had made my peace with it. The trade-off of expecting nothing from them was that they had absolutely no leverage to demand anything from me. It all culminated on the night of the City Chamber of Commerce Gala. Adrian was receiving the Entrepreneur of the Decade award. I wore a sapphire evening gown that Adrian had flown a designer in from Paris to fit. I thought the dress was a bit heavy, but Adrian had looked at me with such a devastatingly hungry expression when I put it on that I decided it was fine. At the gala, Adrian held my hand the entire night. Business moguls, politicians, and celebrities flocked to him, desperate for a sliver of his attention. He handled them with effortless grace, but his thumb constantly stroked the back of my hand, keeping me anchored. I saw Bella there. She looked gaunt. Her dress was 2 seasons old, and she was drinking champagne too fast. Liam was nowhere to be seen. The next morning it happened. I was sitting in the massive sunroom of the penthouse, drinking coffee, when the private elevator chimed. Adrian had gone to the gym downstairs. I expected the housekeeper, but instead, the doors parted to reveal my mother, my father, and Bella. They looked out of place against the imported Italian marble and the modern art on the walls. Wow, Bella breathed, her eyes wide with a mix of awe and naked envy.
Jane.
You live here? Yes, I said, putting my coffee cup down. How did you get past security? We're family, Dad said, puffing out his chest, though he looked nervously around the room. We told them we were Adrian's in-laws. I sighed. What do you want? Mom sat down on the white leather sofa, immediately looking as if she wanted to cry. Jane, Liam filed for divorce. The Cole Enterprises filed for bankruptcy yesterday. He's leaving Bella with nothing. I'm sorry to hear that, I said. And I was in a detached sort of way. Bella stepped forward. Her makeup was slightly smeared, and her eyes were manic. I need help, Jane. I can give you some money for a lawyer, I offered. I don't want a lawyer. Bella snapped, her voice shrill. I want my life back. I want this. She gestured wildly around the penthouse. You can't have the apartment, Bella. Adrian likes the view. I don't want the apartment. I want the life. Bella dropped to her knees in front of my chair. It was incredibly dramatic. Jane, please. You've never cared about these things. You don't care about clothes or money or status. You were fine in that terrible little walk-up. It was a nice walk-up, I corrected gently. You don't even care about Adrian, she cried, grabbing my hands. You just married him, because Mom told you to. You're completely numb, Jane. You have no passions.
Give him to me. You set the hat.
Give you my husband? Mom chimed in, leaning forward eagerly. Jane, listen to her. You're so sensible. You go with the flow. Bella is fragile. She needs someone strong and successful to take care of her. Adrian was supposed to be her fiancé first, remember? I presented his file to her first. She just made a mistake. You can divorce him. You can step aside. With a generous settlement, you could live peacefully anywhere. It's the right thing to do for your sister. I sat perfectly still. My brain processed their words. It was the same logic they had used my whole life. Jane doesn't mind. Jane won't fight for it.
Give the best to Bella.
And the terrifying part was my instinct, honed by decades of conditioning, was to just agree. Why fight? Why argue? If they were going to be hysterical about it, it was easier to just walk away. Adrian was brilliant. He would survive. I would survive. Marriage is marriage, I thought, the old mantra echoing in my head. It's just living life. If he's human, I'm good. I looked at Bella's pleading, entitled eyes. I opened my mouth to say, okay. Before the sound could leave my throat, a large, warm hand clamped firmly over my mouth. I flinched in surprise. A solid wall of muscle pressed against my back. Adrian had come up silently behind my chair. He was wearing his workout clothes, a towel draped over his neck, his chest rising and falling. His eyes, usually so calm and calculated, were practically vibrating with rage. That's not happening, Adrian said. His voice was dangerously low. It wasn't the voice of the man who washed my dishes. It was the voice of a predator. Bella scrambled backward, her face draining of color. Adrian. Me, Bella stammered, pointing to herself. It could happen, Adrian. I can be a better wife to you. I know how to host, how to dress, how to entertain your clients. Jane is just a clerk. She doesn't fit in your world. It really, really can't, Adrian said, removing his hand from my mouth to rest both his hands heavily on my shoulders. His grip was tight, possessive. Because you, Bella, are a parasite. And your parents are enablers of a parasite. The only reason my security let you up here is so I could tell you to your faces, you are never to come near my wife again. My father stood up, angry. Now see here, Adrian. We are your elders. We gave you Jane when you were nothing. You threw Jane away, Adrian corrected, his voice slicing through the room like a blade. You threw her to a bankrupt man because you thought she was worthless. You gave her 2 empty suitcases. You thought you were throwing her into the trash. But you were wrong. Adrian stepped around my chair, placing himself between me and them. Jane is the foundation of everything I have, he said, his voice ringing with absolute certainty. When I was bleeding on the floor, she patched me up. When I was broke, she fed me. When I needed to gamble on my future, she handed me every single cent she had in the world without blinking. She didn't bet on my money. She bet on me. You think she doesn't care about anything? You're blind. She has more grace and strength in her pinky finger than the 3 of you have in your entire bloodline. The room was deafeningly silent. Mom was trembling. Bella looked as if she had been slapped. Get out, Adrian said softly. If I ever see any of you near her, or if you ever call her again, I will personally buy whatever debt the Cole family has left and ensure you are all living on the streets. I have the money. Try me. They didn't say another word. The sheer, overwhelming dominance of his presence broke them. They turned and practically ran to the elevator.
The doors closed.
The penthouse was quiet again. I sat in my chair, staring at the empty space where my family had just been. My heart was doing something strange. It was beating fast. Too fast. Adrian slowly turned around. The terrifying aura vanished, replaced by a sudden, nervous vulnerability. He looked at me, his chest heaving. Were you? His voice cracked. He cleared his throat. Were you actually going to say yes, Jane? I looked up at him. I thought about the juice boxes when I was a kid. I thought about the north-facing bedroom. I thought about how easy it was to let things go. Then I thought about Adrian. I thought about his faded suit on our wedding day. The way he peeled my prawns. The way he promised me the world in that tiny, cramped living room. I looked inside myself, searching for that familiar, numb whatever. It wasn't there. Instead, there was a sudden, fierce flare of panic at the thought of him leaving. A sharp, biting possessiveness that tasted like iron. He wasn't a juice box. He was mine. No, I said. My voice trembled slightly, shocking us both. Adrian froze. I stood up. I looked at this brilliant, handsome, ruthless man who had just declared war on my family for me. I wasn't going to say yes, I told him, stepping closer. I reached out and grabbed the lapels of his workout jacket. I gripped them tightly, my knuckles turning white. I was going to say no. Actually, I think I was going to throw my coffee at her. Adrian's eyes widened. A slow, breathtaking smile spread across his face. Really? Yes, I breathed, suddenly feeling a tear slide down my cheek. I wiped it away, annoyed.
I don't know what's wrong with me.
I'm usually so chill. Adrian laughed. It was a beautiful, triumphant sound. He wrapped his arms around my waist and lifted me right off the floor, spinning me around. You're not chill, Jane, he murmured, burying his face in my hair as he set me down, pulling me flush against him. You're just picky. You were just waiting for something worth holding on to. I wrapped my arms around his neck. Are you worth holding on to? He leaned down, his lips brushing against mine. I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving that I am. When he kissed me, it wasn't a polite, gentlemanly kiss. It was deep, hungry, and entirely possessive. For the first time in my 25 years of existence, I didn't just go with the flow. I pulled him closer, kissing him back with everything I had. The penthouse, the money, the companies, none of it mattered. If he lost it all tomorrow, we'd just eat noodles. But I knew, with absolute certainty, that he would never lose me. And I would never, ever let anyone take him away.